Okay, so can you guess the car by looking at the key fob? Can it be a Mustang? Yes, but not a normal Mustang. This is the Ford Mustang Mach-E GT. It's fully electric, of course. Welcome to It's Only Electric. It's time for a full review of the Mach-E GT. This great color combination is called Cyber Orange. Goes really well together with all the black details. 20-inch wheels, 245, 45 all around, and really big Brembo brakes. More about the brakes during the test drive. 487 horsepower, driving on all four wheels, 860 Nm of torque, and does 0 to 100 km per hour in 3.7 seconds, and 3.5 seconds for 0 to 60 miles per hour, but that's with 1 foot rollout. So this is a mid-size SUV, or more towards a mid-size CUV, a crossover. Measures 4.7 meters, so it's not that small. Has a wheelbase of 2.9 meters and weighs 2.3 tons. A big chunk of that weight comes from the big battery pack. So this is the long-range version. So the gross capacity is 99 kilowatt hours, and it has a net capacity of 91 kilowatt hours. It's an NMC battery, so that's big for this size of a car. And the range, I mean, 487 horsepower will probably eat up a lot of the range, and it does. So 500 kilometers of VLTP range for this specific car. Fully closed grille with a Mustang on top, parking assistance camera, parking sensors all around, active ventilation, a black air spoiler together with the air ventilations, real holes on the sides, combined with the aggressive looking narrow headlights, all together creates a very sporty and aggressive front of the Mustang Mach-E. Let's talk about charging. Manual charge port, CCS2 connector, obviously. Home charging, has a top speed of 11 kilowatts and supports 3-phase charging, so that's good. When it comes to fast charging, it's not that good. 150 kilowatts of peak power of DC charging. That's really not class leading. It's in the same ballpark as the Volkswagen Group's cars, but that's nothing to brag about. So the fast charging could really have been a bit faster. And the manual charge port, that worked. So the rear end of the Mach-E is probably the part that looks like a Mustang the most. Strong heritage from the Mustang look in the taillights, a big GT logo, and all in all, a sporty back. So the GT comes with a powered liftgate, and the boot capacity is 504 liters. That's decent, and you have space underneath too to store all your cables, so that's good. Foldable seats, 60, 40, and it has a frunk of 81 liters. So all real EV platforms comes with the opportunity to have a frunk underneath the hood. You can open the frunk by double tapping the key fob, struts, holding the hood up, 81 liters of storage, drainage holes, and cup holders. Or is it beer holders? So this is a car where you can have a frunk party. I don't know if that's a word, but now it is. Frunk parties is nothing we're used to here in Europe, at least not in Sweden. But it seems like Americans really like to have frunk parties because the F-150 had the same thing. Let's talk about the interior, but first let's look at the doors. As you see, no door handle at the back and a small wing, that's the door handle at the front. As you see here, small round buttons to open the door. When you press it, there is a small rod that pushes the door out for you, and it's easy to open. The same thing goes for the rear door, but when you press the button, the door is pushed out and you get this part as a handle. Smart design. I mean, I like it. I think it looks good, and I also think it works good. Well, on the inside, it's sophisticated and sporty. I like the choice of materials, and especially the colors. Goes really well with the outside and the looks of the car. Nice dashboard with mixed materials. It's fabric inlays together with detailed plastics. in a nice blend, not too much, not too Spartan. I think it's a really good mix. A steering wheel with the Mustang on top, with controls on the steering wheel, and it's not haptic touch buttons, it's real buttons, so it's really easy to control. You have all the media control buttons collected on the right side of the steering wheel, and to the left you have all the driving aid systems. So really good to keep the things together. But as I said, real travel and easy to control. GT comes with sport seats, powered sport seats with lumbar support, but the lumbar is only adjustable in X-axis, not in Y-axis, so that's a miss. Otherwise, comfortable seats, a bit to the stiffer side, but not German stiff, so that's good. Possible to travel longer trips in this car. Perforated suede, black seats, goes really well with the rest of the interior. Wide shoulder support and good side bolsters to support your back. So here in the middle we have the gear selector, really convenient to place just in front of the armrest, so you can rest your arm whilst shifting the gear. Next to the gear selector we have the handbrake and a button for the park assist functionality. 2 cup holders and a Qi charger, 2 USB ports at the front, one C and one A. You also have some extra storage underneath here, so it's a floating dash. No USB charger at that point, but still some extra storage. A 15-inch central media screen paired with a 10.2-inch instrument cluster in the middle. I really like these kind of shapes on the instrument cluster because I think it's just big enough. It's wide instead of high, and it fits perfectly fine between the spokes of the steering wheel. That makes it really available, and you always see all the information and details on the screen. Some people tend to say that that's the cheap way of doing it, but I think that's the smart way of doing it. You don't need a bigger instrument cluster, and it's perfectly placed. So good work. Back to the 15-inch media screen. This is Ford's own system. On top of the screen, you have the same type of volume knob controller as you have in the F-150 Lightning. I like this idea by combining a digital screen with a manual volume knob. And in the newer models, this volume knob is not only a volume knob, you can also use it to control other things. So it's a multi-purpose wheel for controlling different functions. Let's look at the back seat. I'm sitting behind myself, so the front seat, the driver's seat, is adjusted after my liking. And I must say that there is not that much of a leg room. My knees are touching the backrest, and the seat seems to be really thick. Maybe the sport seats takes up more space than the regular seats. I don't know. My feet is easy to stick underneath the front seat, so that's fine. But my knees are touching, as I said. Very strange plastics here. It seems to be not that scratch resistant. So this car is actually full of scratches on these parts, but only on these parts. Seems like this material needs to be changed. So when it comes to headroom, I have plenty of headroom. If I really stretch out, I'm touching the roof, but if I sit as I usually do, there's no problem at all. And there's a smart design here. I mean, the dents in the glass roof really gives you a small amount of extra headroom, and that's really necessary, because if this headliner would have stretched over here, it would have been more cramped. The mid seat is not that good, so the third passenger in the back seat needs to be shorter than me. And by the way, I'm 193 centimeters tall, 6'3", so I'm probably not the best example for someone to put in the back seat, but 2 of me will fit into the back seat without any problem. The biggest issue is the space for the knees, but I mean, if someone more regular tall sits in the front seat, that won't be any problem. Comes with an armrest in the middle. The center console is equipped with 2 manually adjustable ventilations, 2 USB ports, 1 USB-A and 1 USB-C. One thing that I like with the back seats is that Ford has actually used the same materials as in the front. And that's not... One thing that I like is the choice of materials for the back seat. The thing is that they are actually the same as in the front seat, and that's not always the case. Some manufacturers tend to put not that good materials in the back seats, more hard plastics than in the front seat and the front doors especially. Ford has not done that in this case, and that feels good. So you have the same feeling in the back seat as in the front seat. I like that. So no ski latch or center part to fold here at the back seat, but you can fold it in two parts, as I said. Okay, let's take Sally for a ride and see how she drives. So the Mach-E GT is equipped with Ford's own Magna Ride. That's a shortening for magnetic ride, and in short terms that means that the suspension is soft on bad road conditions and in slow speeds, and gets stiff in tight corners and when driving it a bit harder. So it should give you the best of two worlds actually. So comfort when needed and sportiness when you want that. And I can really confirm that it's working. I mean, the body roll of this car is one of the tightest cars I have ever tried. Because when I push Sally in corners, in sharp corners, sharp maneuvers, it's really quick. It's amazingly quick, and you have a really nice feel to the steering wheel. So the driving dynamics of this car is really untamed, but in a sophisticated way. The GT comes with 3 different drive modes: Whisper, Active, and Untamed. Whisper is the calm mode, as it says. It's more a comfort mode. There is no eco mode in this car, but Whisper is the closest you get, and it's not as aggressive on the accelerator as in Active or Untamed. But if I floor it, it is it's still blistering fast. And I mean, for me, this is not Whisper, this is aggressive still. So I don't really get to Whisper mode. I don't know. And then on top of that, you have Active, and that's a bit more of an active driving. It's even more aggressive on the accelerator. Also adds some more sound. I have activated propulsion sound, and that gets more distinct when driving on Active. It's a roaring sound. Whoa! It's a bit wet, so it just threw the back out when I floored it. This car is probably very fun to drive on a track. Yes! Oh, this is a quick car. I need to take it easy. One of the most exciting electric cars I have tested so far. So in Whisper, it's aggressive. In Active, it's even more aggressive. In Untamed, yeah, that's the next level of aggressiveness. But the good thing though is it doesn't matter, because you can still drive it as you want. It's under your control, so you just use your right foot as you deserve. So it's very granular, it's very fine-tuned, so it's easy to drive it calm. The drive modes, they are already tuned, so they are what they are. You can't change the drive modes, you just choose the drive mode and live with it. But what you can adjust though is the regen. You can activate something called one pedal driving, and one pedal driving is possible to activate on all 3 different drive modes. So the drive mode doesn't disable the one pedal driving function, and I always drive it on one pedal driving, as I do with all cars if possible, and it really gets you to a full stop, and it's really nice to drive it this way. It's all about your own right foot, nothing else. You just adjust everything with one foot, and that's really convenient. If you get used to that, you don't want to drive a car without the one pedal driving functionality. I always put the cars into a bit more harsh driving conditions. So in this time, gravel road with potholes, some bumps, to see how the car behaves, how the noise level is, how the suspension handles the unevenness. And in this case, it's interesting to see the mix between sportiness and comfort on this kind of roads. I think the noise, the cabin noise, is fairly low. So the sound insulation seems to be good in the Mach-E. And the GT version comes with acoustic glass, so double pane windows at the front. That also, of course, compensates for some road noise and gives you a bit more comfort. Let's drive over some holes and see. I think it behaves very good. I mean, I was expecting... Did you see that? It's a monster. I did expect some harsher ride actually. So I'm actually very positive to the suspension, to the Magna suspension. It's gives you a really good mix of comfort and sportiness. You actually get the comfort when you really need it. So Magna ride for the win. So it's finally time for me to summarize my experience with the Ford Mustang Mach-E GT. It has been a really pleasant time. I will start with the driving dynamics, and this car is really fun to drive. So if you want a sporty crossover, this may be the right car for you. One thing that I didn't mention in the video is the Brembo brakes. They are really powerful, and it really helps you to drive more sporty, and they are very distinct when you press the brake pedal. Can't compare it to the brakes on the Model Y Performance, for instance. The other thing is the suspension and the power. I mean, the suspension really adapts. So when you push the car, you get a really sporty feeling, and it keeps you on the road in a very good way with no body roll at all. This is the best car I ever tried when it comes to body roll. So it's really engaging and really quick in the corners. And that's really fun with a powerful car like this. I mean, almost 500 horsepower and almost 700 Newton meters of torque. That gives you a lot of power to handle. But the car can handle it, the brakes can handle it, the four-wheel drive can handle it, and the suspension can handle it in a really good way. One thing that I don't like is the consumption. I mean, it's a really not efficient car. The consumption is really high. It's hard to drive it under 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. And it's not that big of a car. It should be a lot lower than that. I mean, it should be like 17 or 16 in these dry roads and driving conditions. It's almost 20 degrees outside. So it should be more efficient than it actually is. Hopefully Ford will manage to get it more efficient. One factor is, of course, the air resistance. The CD value is very high, 0.3. Compared to the competition, it's too high, and that drag will really sink the efficiency of the car. To the next thing, and that's the exterior design and the interior design. I think Ford has managed to create a really beautiful car, a cool looking car. You have the DNA from Mustang. Some say it doesn't, but I think it has. At least when you look at the rear taillights and some parts in the front, really has some elements from the real Mustangs, and I like that. And when it comes to the interior, I love the mix between a traditional car and a futuristic electric car. They have managed to keep that line all the way. I mean, the amount of physical buttons and digital buttons on the screen actually works really good. You have just enough hardware buttons, and the steering wheel buttons really well executed. Easy to find, easy to use. So what's your thoughts about the Ford Mustang Mach-E GT? Have you tried it? What you think about it? Do you like the exterior design? What you think about the driving performance? Let me know in the comments below. Let us have a discussion. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And as always, stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.